Key.
Welcome to Fantasy Football Aces. It's your boy, William Wolf. I'm back. And Fantasy Football Aces is moving on to 5-0. You heard it again, 5-0. We got a lot to react to from this past weekend. We got a lot of waiver stuff to be talking about today. It's an interesting week for waivers. Depending on how you spent your money, you know, the first 5 weeks, essentially, leading up until week 6, there's some interesting waiver wire pickups that you could be making depending on how much money you have. Depending on how much money you have left, maybe you need to be risking it all. You got to risk it all. Oh, I got to risk it all. You know when you got to risk it all. Sometimes you got to do it for a lady. Sometimes you got to do it for a waiver wire pickup. We're going to get right into the diamond first. And then we'll get into waivers. And then we'll get into the NFL reactions. And that'll coincide with waivers. First of all, we'll go to the monitor. Fantasy Football Aces got a win. Didn't put up a lot of points this week, but that's because I didn't start Justin Fields. If I did, I would have had a really respectable score again. We're at a 5-0. We have $21 left in our budget. It's below average. It's one of the lowest, so we're not going to be able to go after anybody. Luckily, I don't really need to. I'll put some pressure on people and bid $21 on certain guys. That way they know they have to bid more than 21, and then that just gets me back in closer in the rotation to being able to get somebody of priority later down the line. I used all my money on Puka Nacua and Nico Collins, and I have no regrets there. They're the reason, one of the main reasons why I'm 5-0. Played a really one of the worst team in the league this past week, so it was an expected win. Good to hold up. I went with Stafford over Fields in this matchup because I felt his ceiling wasn't too high, and I wanted to just get a good floor, and that's exactly what I did. I got 19 points, didn't risk anything. If I started Fields, it would have been a very comfortable win along with Philadelphia's defense, opposed to running out Washington, who was playing against Fields when I went. So I essentially went against them. I went with the numbers. Washington was supposed to be good against them, but ended up, didn't work out. We already have a message here. Let me check this out real quick. I screwed up. Help me, Ace. I'm 1-4 with the second most points with Mahomes, Bijan, Achane, Diggs, CD, Andrews, Hollywood, running the Lions D and Aubrey. Yeah, I mean, you messaged me a couple days ago, so I remember the name Football Thoughts, and I remember the team. I don't really think you messed up, buddy. I think that you're fine. Your team looks good. Achane is going to be out for some weeks, but you probably can manage. It looks like you have a good team, so I wouldn't stress it. Some teams out there are going to be 1-4 because they've just been unlucky and they've played a lot of high scores. They played a lot. Every time they play somebody, their opponent just has an incredible day. That's just the luck of the draw. But if you have a good team and you're putting points up on the board every week, it'll take care of itself. You're still most likely make the playoffs. That's why top 6 make it. Points are very important when it comes to that. You'll climb up the standings as your team continues to do better and or get wins and fight through the bye weeks. The bye weeks is where a lot of teams decimate. They make drops that they shouldn't. They make drops because they have to. Injuries happen along with buys, which force drops of players that probably shouldn't be getting dropped. This is where you can take advantage of things. Good managers from week 5 on, they thrive through bye weeks. That's what bye weeks in depth is all about. So we're just getting into the thick of things. I think if you have a strong team, it's important to, get off to a good start and a good record going into the bye weeks. But, sometimes luck's not on your side, and, people score a lot of points against you. And that's one of the luck factors of fantasy football. And there's nothing you can do about it. But to me, it looks like you have a good team. It sucks that Achane got hurt, but hopefully you can replace him through free agency and waivers, as we will get into waivers. We're looking ahead to week 6. I am playing my rival. It is rivalry week next week. I'll be playing the 2-3 GOAT, a.k.a. Highly, a.k.a. the SEC champ, the SEC expert, SEC, Highly. That's his name, Highly. It's my boy. I've been knowing him since I was a little kid. We're extremely, extremely, extremely competitive. Every year we do a bet on steak dinner. And we live in Tampa, Florida, where we can go to the strip club and have a nice steak dinner there and look at some ladies. So that's exactly what will be on the line this weekend between these two teams. 2-3 GOAT versus the Fantasy Football Aces, 5-0 against 1-4. He's a 1-4 team, guys, but his team is coming on now. He had a bad start, similar to you. Final thoughts, but his team is starting to get stronger now compared to early on. Breece Hall is effectively unleashed at this point. He had a great week, so now that gives him a big boost. Pacheco's kind of solidified himself as the RB1 there, so he's got a good 1-2 punch at running backs. As far as Jahmyr Gibbs is concerned, I kind of hope that he ends up playing, because then if he plays him against Tampa Bay, I don't predict he'll do anything. So that'll be a good thing for me. But overall, he's got a good team. DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, and then he's got Pickens on a bye, who would normally probably be in there for either Gibbs or Godwin. Trevor Lawrence has kind of been a hiccup of his team. He started off hot, but really has been a disappointment. I think he'll turn it around. He has a good matchup this week against Indianapolis. So I think this is going to be a really close matchup. Obviously, I have Raheem Mostert. I also have James Cook. I will be starting Raheem Mostert over James Cook again, especially with the Achane news. I just get a huge boost from Mostert. I wasn't too concerned about Achane. I know he's been balling, but Raheem Mostert has 8 tutties. He got a tutty last week, even with Achane out there. So for me personally, I thought it didn't matter. I knew I was going to be in a 50-50 split eventually with Mostert anyways, with Jeff Wilson. Ended up being a better Achane anyways. I liked Achane in the lineup because he got them down in the red zone pretty quickly and often, and the offense was very efficient with them, subbing in Mostert and him and playing them at the same time on the field, something that Mike McDaniel is just brilliant at, getting 4.3 speed across the board with Waddle, Hill, Mostert, and Achane. But it's a win-win situation now. Now Mostert is going to eat, 70% at least this game until Jeff Wilson comes probably back next week. I don't predict Jeff Wilson coming in too much this coming week. I think they'll give, Mostert about 16, 17 carries and goal line carries as well. So against Carolina, that's a big boost in this matchup. I think it could, be the reason why I win this week. DeAndre Swift going against the Jets and Breece Hall going against the Eagles head up. That'll be a head up matchup in this matchup, and head up in real life as well. I think DeAndre's the favorite in that matchup. Yahoo doesn't think so, but Breece Hall going against the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense is just, they're unbelievable against the run. So I don't predict Breece Hall doing much. Pacheco against Denver is the wild card of this matchup. I think Thursday night he should have a big game, but I'm okay with him having a big game. I've played against running backs that have big days against me. I played against Christian McCaffrey when he scored, 20-something points. So that's no big deal. Pollard against the Chargers, Swift against the Jets, and Mostert against Carolina. I like my 3 running backs to outscore his running backs. I expect a huge day from Justin Fields. I'm thinking of 35 to 40 points from him this coming week. I think he finally rushes for a long touchdown, maybe like a 60, 50-yard rush. 60 to 80 yards rushing with a touchdown or 2, and another 200-plus yards passing with another tutty. So I'm expecting a huge day from Justin. Puka continues to roll. I think Nico has a bounce-back day, possibly against Marshawn Lattimore, which will be tough. And DeAndre Hopkins, I think he's starting to find his zone in Tennessee. He looked absolutely fantastic in that last game. More importantly than them playing a bad Colts pass defense is the fact that DeAndre just looked good, guys. He looked really good. He looked like his old self. Nice, crisp routes, sticky hands, great body control. He just looks like the old-fashioned DeAndre Hopkins. The old age. He might not be able to bring that to the table every week, but who knows? He looks healthy, and he might turn it on now, guys, just in time. I got Quentin Johnston and Jamison Williams both starting to heat up here and get into their lineups, and so I'm excited to see what they can do the rest of the year, but they'll sit the bench until further notice, until they show me a little bit more. That's going to be a fun one. We also had Team 2 Elite take an L this past week and also lose Justin Jefferson. He's in a lot of trouble. I think some big regression is going to come for Team 2 Elite. I see a dramatic fall here, maybe a couple losses in a row. Korea, he is the number 1 seed at the moment. He has a few more points than me. And he lost Achane for a couple weeks. He had already lost Nick Chubb. So he's going to have to spend some budget money and replace himself with a running back, possibly another receiver as well. So I believe Korea will be just fine just because he has that budget to spend to replace Achane for the time being. But his team is very good and loaded, so I don't expect Korea to go anywhere. The Criminals, team keeps rolling. He had the best week this past week. It was kind of predictable. He had a lot of good matchups this past week. But he lost Justin Jefferson for Kirk Cousins because he has Kirk Cousins. That's going to hurt him. He picked up Jordan Love and thought Jordan Love was in love with Jordan, but Jordan stinks. He smells bad. So I don't know if he'll try to start him next week. If he does, I think it'll be a mistake. But I think that, Justin Jefferson's going to hurt him, losing him. But outside of that, his team is very strong. I don't think he even needs to rely on quarterback play too much. But when he runs into a team like myself or Korea who can match him up man for man as far as the other positions are concerned, I think the quarterback's going to be the difference. Justin Fields can put up a 40-burger. Kirk Cousins can't. And not without Justin Jefferson, that's for sure. And Justin Fields has a lot of sexy matchups from here on out. He did it essentially from his week against prior to Washington against Denver. From Denver on, though, it was cake matchups. If you look at the board, the Green Bay Packers and the Chiefs and are both good against quarterbacks thus far this year and defensively. So it's no surprise that Justin struggled a little bit, but you just see green the rest of the way for him. I think that he could be a top 3 quarterback in all of fantasy when it's all said and done, and that's what I drafted him for, guys. I'm really excited about him in the future. So we'll get right into it. We've reacted to the Bears Commanders already. Let's get into the Jaguars Bills, the 9:30 a.m. game. First of all, I want to say James Cook, your alarm should be going off with him right now. Long term, I think that he's a viable guy. I think that most likely in your lineup, you're going to have to play him. So there's nothing to really stress about. But if you have options like I do, guys, have him have a seat right now because He's only getting, 60% of snaps. Sometimes some weeks, depending on the script, it gets as low as 50 to 40%. They like to get Latavius Murray in there. They like to get Damian Harris in there. And on the goal line, they don't really want to give James Cook the ball. They want to give it to Latavius, and they want to give it to Damian Harris. This team has always been a pass-happy team. As it gets colder in Buffalo, they will run the ball better. But the problem is their offensive line stinks, especially for run blocking. And that was always my concern with James. I went after him essentially because I thought that he would be, a volume guy in a great offense with lots of opportunities to catch the ball out of the backfield, 6-7 targets a game. So far, it's been off and on as far as that's concerned. I was blessed and lucky to have Raheem Mostert, or I would be struggling some weeks with Cook, even though he's only really had one bad fantasy output. But the week prior to that, even with the touchdown, I saw a bad trend going on. I would throw that last game out the window against Jacksonville because Jacksonville has good defense, and they got a lead on Buffalo. But still, overall, that backfield is a little bit too competitive right now in Buffalo, and I'd like to see James.
For the amazing new iPhone 15 Pro.
Whoa.
Sean, do you mean this one?
A little ad
titanium?
played
Switch
here.
to Verizon. You can trade in any iPhone and get the new iPhone 15 Pro on them.
It's your last chance to trade in any iPhone for a new iPhone 15 Pro on us,
iPhone
only
15
on Verizon.
Pro. Huh? All right, I turned that off. Sorry about that. I think that, overall, like I said, you'd like to see James get, 15 carries a game at least, and 5 or 6 targets, and that's where he's going to be in his stride and possibly be an RB1 that you saw the first couple of weeks of the year. But right now, the alarm should be going off a little bit. You're not too concerned, but if you have options, man, have James take a seat. Just trust me on that. He's not getting as many snaps as he should. Josh Allen, he just loves to sling it too, which is something I already knew. It's just the problem is you would think the run would be more open because they pass the ball so much, and for whatever reason, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they had that boggled up. I don't know if that's going to turn. I just need to see more from that situation. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, they're going to spread the ball around. Ridley, Ingram, Kirk, even Zay Jones. I think that you're in a situation where, you're going to have up and down weeks from all those guys. It seems like Christian Kirk is the target machine in that offense, though. So that's the one guy you probably can rely on a good floor every week. But overall, Trevor Lawrence, I think he'll have some better days going forward here. He had a really efficient game against Buffalo. He played well. Fantasy-wise, it was just decent. But I think, he's in store for a big game this week against Indianapolis. Unfortunately, that's going to be against me because I'm playing against Trevor Lawrence this coming week. But I'll match it with Justin Fields, so we're ready to rock in that matchup. Moving on to the Texans-Falcons, Tank Dell in the concussion protocol. Most likely he will miss this coming week. That's just the way the NFL has been. When somebody gets in that protocol, they don't seem to make it back to the coming week. So it'll be the Nico Collins show this coming week. He's going to be going off against Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn has had a lot of success against bigger receivers. He's going against Mike Evans his whole career. So I'm not really expecting Nico to have a big game this coming week, but you're not taking him out of your lineup either. He's the wide receiver 1, and I don't necessarily think that Lattimore is actually going to follow Nico around the field. I also think Nico can beat him if necessary, and if Stroud is looking for him, he'll be just fine. It seems like he's been big game, not so big game, big game, not so big game, big game, not so big game so far. So if that trend continues, you expect a big game from Nico. For me personally, I think the talent is through the roofs. If you've followed me so far on my podcast, there's no way I'm taking Nico out of that lineup, and neither should you. I think Robert Woods has an opportunity to be startable in your league this coming week if Tank Dell is out. The Saints have a good defense, but C.J. Stroud, he seemed like, he's somebody you can rely on as far as throwing your receivers out with him for fantasy football. Dameon Pierce, you're starting him no matter what. I think at this point, I like him in that offense. I like the volume. Better days are ahead for him. As far as the Atlanta side of the ball is concerned, something's going on with Pitts. I wouldn't be starting him anyways. He's garbage regardless. So I don't think it's huge news. Drake London he's been having a little bit of a resurgence the last couple of weeks. But I wouldn't really count on that. If you're starting him, you're most likely have to. And Bijan, he had a disappointing week this past week against the Texans. He had a touchdown and whatnot, but you would have expected one of his huge breakout weeks this past week. And, I don't think it's ever going to come for him in Atlanta right now. I think that teams are super focused on him, and that's part of the reason why Drake London's had a little bit of success of late. And I don't know if that trend's going to discontinue, because teams are going to try to stop Bijan, and that's what they're going to try to do. They don't respect Ritter. They don't expect the passing game. So the identity of Atlanta has been established the last 2 years, and defensively, teams are going to come ready to try to stop that identity. So you're not sitting Bijan. Obviously, he's a fucking RB1. But my point is, I think you're only starting Bijan going forward here, unless you have to start London through bye weeks or your receiver group is a little weak. Moving on to the Panthers-Lions, we had a bunch of injuries in that game. It led to Montgomery being the RB1 with no competition, which is kind of what's been going on anyways, even with Gibbs in that lineup. So he delivered. It wasn't as big of a day as it possibly could have been. Jameson Williams, he was in for 20%, 30% of the snaps. So that was expected. That was exactly what the Lions said they were going to do. They're easing him in. They marked him down for a drop, but I watched that whole game. I watched every snap. That was a little in route. There was a linebacker right there. He could have caught it and possibly made a move, or he could have caught it and got smashed. I don't really think that that's a drop. I think that it could have definitely been caught, but it's one of those kind of situations where he's not the kind of receiver you want to see doing that kind of route. That's a St. Brown kind of route. That's a, Puka Nacua kind of route, a guy who's going to catch it and then bounce off the tackle possibly, or get some tough yards, extra yards. I don't really count that as a drop. I don't think that's the kind of identity, the kind of route tree that you're going to want Jameson Williams on anyways. That's a St. Brown route, as I just said. So I don't take that as a drop at all. It doesn't concern me at all. It was just nice to see Jameson get his feet wet out there in a game that they knew Carolina didn't have a chance. I thought it was great just to get him out there, throw a couple bubble screens to him. He didn't do anything with them. They were ready for him. The Panthers were. But, one of those, he felt like, he got up and slammed the ball a little bit. Like he felt like he should have got loose a little bit. I think, the output and path for Jameson Williams is still yet to be seen. We need to see St. Brown back in the lineup, because when St. Brown gets in the lineup, that's when Jameson, if he can get 60, 70% of snaps, is really going to show what he's capable of and what he's going to be in this offense. I will say right now that Reynolds looks good. He's giving the Lions organization no reason to bench him. He's coming through. He made a great catch for a touchdown. He's a big body. He has good hands. He's reliable. I don't know how long it'll take. I think that they're going to roll out with Reynolds and Reynolds and St. Brown as the 70, 80% plus snap share. And then, Jameson will essentially be the third guy and or the X coming in on certain packages. But I believe that it'll take like Jameson to make one of those incredible plays that you just see a difference in his athleticism, that at that point, Dan Campbell and the organization is like, hey, we got to keep this guy on the field. So until that happens, I believe he'll still only be 30 to 40% of snaps. Sounds bizarre when you're the top 12 pick first rounder, but that's the same thing they're doing to Gibbs too. So as long as they keep winning, they don't give a shit, and that's what it's all about for an NFL organization. It's not about fantasy football. So if they're winning and playing well as an offense, they're not concerned about Jameson Williams and Gibbs getting on the field. But as I said, for Jameson Williams and for Gibbs, to be honest, for that matter, it's going to take them to have a game where they just absolutely dominate so much that you can't take them off the field anymore. And for Jameson, I think that path is a little easier than Gibbs at this point. I think for Jameson, it's going to take him catching a little slant route and going to the crib, or, beating a cornerback on a one-on-one for a 60, 70-yard touchdown where, nobody else on the team can do what he does. And it's something that they just can't keep him off the field. But until then, we're going to keep Jameson on your bench unless you absolutely have to. I think against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this coming week, they'll get him up to 50% snaps. If they can get him up to 50% snaps, you should see, 5 to 6 targets, I believe, and at least a couple of those will be deep shots. On the Panthers side of the ball, I don't want to start anybody except Adam Thielen. And you can start Adam Thielen with some confidence at this point. He's starting to emerge as a borderline wide receiver 1 with the target and volume that he's getting. There's no competition for targets out there, essentially, and he's proven right now that he is a PPR guy. So if you're in a PPR league, he's even more valuable. Half point, a little less, but you're not benching him at this point. Adam Thielen's in your lineup. Nobody else I'm starting. Not Miles Sanders is going to take a seat right now, along with anybody else. Hubbard. Moving on to the Titans-Colts. We talked a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins already, but God, he looked good this past week. I encourage anybody out there who's skeptical or possibly maybe trying to buy low on DeAndre. It might be tough after this past week to buy low on him, but turn on the tape because he looked really good, man. He looked like his old self. And to me, he looked like his old self this whole year. It's just the scheme, and it's Ryan Tannehill that's holding him back a little bit. But a game like that where you really get him involved and Tannehill really gets a taste of how good DeAndre can be when you're getting him the ball and how much better your offense can be. I believe that DeAndre, this is the week that he just now is going forward, emerges as a, high-end wide receiver 2. With that kind of volume, he could easily go into the wide receiver 1 category where he essentially was the back end of last year coming back from suspension with the Arizona Cardinals. He was a high volume, high target, high catch kind of guy. You just want to see him get in the end zone. He should have gotten the end zone. Derrick Henry had a little halfback pass to him that he just barely didn't get 2 feet in. The pass was a little too high. What can you say? It's from a running back. So, but that he was really close to getting the end zone. I think that's going to happen here soon. He's a big guy with great hands. He's going to be your number 1 target in the red zone for the Tennessee Titans when they get down there. You just need that offense to keep performing well. Spears is a good addition if you're a Hopkins guy because he's helping them, get more explosive plays and get downfield. They got a left tackle back from suspension, so that helps their offense. I think Tennessee might be trending in the right direction as a football team going forward, which is great news for DeAndre Hopkins. You're starting him, you're starting Henry, and you have your eye on Spears. I wouldn't start him, but he's getting a lot of snaps. On the Colts side of the ball, it was you're in a messy situation if you have JT or Moss stock because you're not going to know which guy to start from here on out. I actually dropped Zach Moss in one of my leagues this past week before the week started, and obviously that was a bad move. But I think in the long term, it doesn't matter. JT's going to take over, or it's going to be 50-50. In a 50-50 offense in Indianapolis, I don't want any part of Zach Moss, not on any half-point PPR format neither. So I'm okay with my drop. Whatever, I'm not results-oriented. They rolled out Moss full-time this past week, which was something you didn't expect after JT getting that money, 3 years, whatever amount of million that was. It's just surprising. So, but if you have a piece of either one of them, it sucks, man, because I don't know if you can sit either one of them. You got to kind of have to roll them out and then pray that if you're a JT guy, you're praying that, he starts to slowly keep getting more snaps and carries. And if you're on the Moss side, you're hoping for the contrary. So, I mean, it's a tough situation. I wouldn't want to be any part of it. So I'm glad I am not. Gardner Minshew, I've talked about this in the past. He's good for downs. So if you have down stock, or if downs is in waivers, I'd go after him, because with Minshew, you're going to get a lot of more targets from him. For him, I think that's bad for Pittman, but also, you know, I think overall it's bad for Pittman, but it's good for downs. So Minshew seems like he likes to throw it to Downs, Josh Downs. So, you know, I would target him in free agency if he's out there in Fab, because I think that there's a potential for him to be a starter for you with Gardner Minshew. Overall, the Colts, I don't buy this team at all. I think they're a bottom 15 team in the NFL. They have a good offensive line, which is the reason Zach Moss had a big day. But like I said, I don't think you can rely on either one of those. Moving on to the Dolphins, Giants. If you have any Giant stock, just sit them on the bench. They're not playing. You got to wait for Barkley to get back. When Barkley gets back, you're going to play him, but I wouldn't expect much out of him. You know, they're going to load the box against the Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's decent, but I wouldn't count on him. I'd sit him on the bench. You're not starting any other receiver. You could start Darren Waller, but that's because all tight ends, essentially, besides Travis Kelce, are, you know, hit or miss. I would say Darren Waller's floor is as high as anybody else. I mean, Mark Andrews has been pretty reliable as far as floor is concerned since he's been healthy. But overall, all these tight ends are just hit or miss. You're not taking them out of your lineup. You just roll with them, like George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, who had a big day finally. You put hit this guy in that category. Waller, you could put Higbee in that category. Essentially, he'll probably have a big day eventually. You just can't predict it, so you just kind of just keep him in your lineup and wait your turn. And you kind of have an advantage at the tight end position with Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, because I think their floor is a little higher than all these other guys. But on the Dolphins side of the ball, yeah, we all have the news of Achane with a little knee injury. They're keeping it a little under wraps right now of how serious it is. Most reports say multiple weeks, but they haven't put him on the IR yet. So that tells me it might only be like a 2-week injury. And unless you hear about them going on the IR for 4 weeks, then I think it'll turn into a 4 or 5 week thing. Most likely Jeff Wilson Jr. is not out on waivers. Most likely somebody had him stashed on their bench or on an IR spot. But if he's out there, yeah, you're going to go after him. Mostert's going to be the RB1 as usual. And, you know, they'll work Jeff Wilson in, not this week probably, but the following week they'll try to work him in. And, you know, I think that if he's playing well, the same thing that happened in this past duo with Achane and Mostert is Achane looked so good that he just got more and more snaps as it went on. I didn't think that mattered for Mostert. For me personally, I'm a Mostert holder, and I start him every week. It doesn't matter, because in that Miami Dolphins offense, he is the best goal line runner, and he runs hard right now. He knows that that's part of something that he brings to the team, along with his receiving ability and his ability to line up in the slot. That's something that I know for a fact that he knows that about himself, and he brings that intangible to the Miami Dolphins because the other running backs can't. I think Jeff Wilson is more of a power back as well, so that's a little bit of different dynamic when he's actually fully healthy. Like, what are they going to do on the goal line? Because Mostert is the goal line guy right now. If you want to pound one in from 4 yards out, 3 yards out, it's going to be Mostert, and he's lowering his pads, and he looks good when he's doing it. So that's his role. He still runs a 4-3. I like Mostert's role in this offense regardless of who's in the situation. Achane, Wilson, doesn't matter. I think Mostert's still going to be on for 50% of the snaps. He's just that good. He's that valuable. He runs a 4-3. He runs hard, and he can line up in the slot. So it's one of those situations that if you have Mostert, you're starting him no matter what at this point. This offense is too good, and, you know, with Achane out, it's even better. I don't really know what to say about Jeff Wilson, guys. I don't know. I think in a perfect world for Mike McDaniel, he didn't really care to have Wilson Jr. come back at all. You're dealing with a shitty agent and Drew Rosenhaus, who's Jeff Wilson's agent, so that's already a nightmare. I think Achane and Mostert were a perfect combination of like just electrifying speed, along with another guy who has electrifying speed but a bigger, more bruising running back, like a 4-3 downhill 4-3 runner, opposed to Achane, who was like a shifty 4-3 runner. A guy like Achane, he doesn't really want to have a ton of contact, but he's shifty. He reminds me a lot of Chris Johnson, the old Tennessee Titan. And Mostert was the 4-3 more downhill guy. So in a perfect world, I think they wanted to roll that duo out, but I'd be curious to see what they do with Wilson, if he's healthy, fully healthy, now that he has an opportunity to get in that offense. I don't think it's going to be a situation like last year where Wilson kind of like becomes the RB1 to Mostert's semi RB2. I think it's more of a situation on the opposite side of this time around, where Wilson would be a guy just working in. But I'm purely speculating, so we'll see how that goes, and then we're even more curious to see how they look when they have all three of these guys. But overall, I would be very happy to have Mostert or Achane on my roster for the fantasy football playoffs and moving forward in general with that offense. I don't think there's anything to be mentioned about Tua, Waddle, and Hill. They're all starting your lineup. They're all in the best offense in the NFL. Moving on to the Saints-Patriots. The Patriots are an absolute shit show. I think Bill Belichick strategically is in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I think that they want to try to get Caleb Williams, move on from Mac Jones, and start over. Caleb Williams would be the perfect guy to do that. I think there's a lot of teams this year that are going to be tanking for Caleb Williams. I really do. I think there's 5 to 6 teams that are going to be doing that. The one bad thing is the Bears have Carolina's pick, and they just drafted Bryce Young, so they will be the one team that's not tanking. They're trying to win because they don't even have a pick, and on top of that, they got a quarterback already. So they will be trying to win. On the contrary, I'm hoping that they're a bottom 2 team though, so the Bears can get Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair up with DJ Moore for Justin Fields. But back to the topic at hand. I think Ramondre Stevenson's schedule gets a lot easier this coming weeks, but their offense is really bad. They have a really hard time moving the chains on third down. These are teams and offenses that I've been trying to tell you got to stay away from. If the offense can't move the chains on third down, you want to stay away from them because you don't get long sustaining drives, which means less opportunities, less carries, less targets, etc. So on the Saints side of the ball, you're really encouraged to see what Kamara's brought to the table. You hit a home run if you drafted him for cheap, and now you have him in your lineup. He looks great. He looks like the old Kamara, and not only to that, but he's getting the volume, which is very rare in the NFL right now, where you get an RB1 who's essentially the 3-down horse dog, a guy that I value the most. If Kamara would be right on my list for somebody I would target, knowing what I know now. I didn't think that he would be getting all the carries and all the snaps. I thought it would be more of a committee approach in New Orleans, but it's not. So if you have Kamara, you hit a home run right now. He looked great. Olave's stock is down as of late, but I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I think he'll get it going eventually, especially if Derek Carr gets a little bit more healthy. I don't really want to start anybody else in that offense, though. I'd sit Shaheed and I'd sit Michael Thomas. Moving on to the Ravens Steelers, Lamar Jackson, he looks great. He, as I've said all along, he had a really bad fantasy football day, but I don't blame that on him. A lot of drops in that game. I think they broke some kind of record, 7 drops. My boy Mark Andrews, apparently, I watched it. I saw it. It looked like a throw that Lamar was trying to throw it to the back receiver along the back line of the end zone, and Andrews kind of tried to jump up because he thought it was to him, and he wasn't able to come down with it. But The throw really wasn't for him. I don't really think that was a drop. I've heard other experts talking about that being a bad drop by Andrews. I just don't agree. I think it's similarly in the same fashion as the drop that I saw from Jameson Williams, where it's just a tough ball and a tough situation, and you don't expect to come down with those every time. When they do come down with them, it's a fucking amazing play. You're like, oh, what a play. But when they don't, I don't think you should be mad at them. That's just my opinion. I know they're NFL pros, some Pro Bowlers, but those are tough plays, and I don't consider that a drop. I think that, besides Mark Andrews, you're going to start Zay Flowers, and that's about it. I wouldn't want to start anybody in that backfield right now. Justice Hill and Gus Edwards, you can't predict who's going to score what week. If you have any other better options, I'd throw them out there. If they're a flex guy, I would try to just throw a receiver out there who might get some targets and volume. I just think Gus Edwards is I don't really know what to expect from him and Justice Hill on a week-to-week basis. I don't know who the guy is. They're both really not that great at this moment. I don't want any part of that. On the Steelers side of the ball, Deontay Johnson should be coming back soon. But I've said all along, this whole year, I don't want anybody on the Steelers. Pickens has been making big plays, so I think that's the one guy that you can start and expect boom or bust games. He's going to have some stinkers, especially with Deontay back, but he's going to have some big games where he makes big plays like he has 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Or it might be 2 out of the last 4 weeks. I'd have to look. But Pickens is a big play guy. I think there's no denying that. So he'd be the one guy I'd start. I'm sitting Najee Harris. I'm sitting Jaylen Warren. I can't throw those guys out in my lineup. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles and Rams. That was my pick of the week. The Rams, they let me down in the second half. Stafford looked great the first 2 quarters, and quarter 3 and 4 he threw up a stinker. He wasn't able to find his receivers. I think Philadelphia played some man with Cup double covered, and the Rams struggled a little bit to scheme up their guys to get open. I saw Stafford definitely missed Cup on a couple of deep routes that I think that they'll connect on as the year progresses and they get their timing back. But I would say, Stafford, I would blame that more on him and on those plays, because I think Kupp had some separation. And, you just expect a little bit more from Stafford. They couldn't get the running game going against Philadelphia, which is always tough. But Philadelphia, give credit to them. They played a really good defense the second half. They showed why they are one of the best defenses in the NFL, something they haven't shown all year, something they didn't show against Sam Howell. And I think it was more about them playing well than the other way around. Obviously, that hurt me in DraftKings, and it hurt my pick of the week. The Rams, they couldn't backdoor. They had a chance to backdoor twice in that game at +4, losing 23-14. So it just didn't happen. That's two of my losses this year where I had a really good opportunities to backdoor, with the Jaguars against the Chiefs and the Rams against the Eagles. And I just wasn't able to do it. So you take those L's and move on. It's a tough game, It's not easy. I'm giving sharp picks, but that doesn't mean they're always going to win. I did pair that sharp pick up with the Chiefs, so it was a 1-1, but that wasn't my pick of the week, so I can't take credit for it, as I did take the Chiefs over the Vikings, which we will get to. I think we all can see now that there is a consolidation in targets in LA, so it's going to be the Puka Nacua Cooper Kupp show. I think with 1A being Kupp and 1B being Puka Nacua. I imagine them both getting 9 targets plus every single week. It's just a matter of which guy gets the touchdown, but they're both good floor guys. They're both reliable. And I think there's a consolidation there where you won't see a ton of targets to Higbee or Tutu Atwell anymore. But Tutu will have those games occasionally where he catches a bomb for a touchdown. That's the kind of speed he brings to the table. They traded Van Jefferson, so that they're going to run those 3 guys out. Puka Nacua played 100% of snaps last week, so that's great signs if you have Puka Nacua. People were nervous about what would happen when Kupp comes back. I wasn't nervous personally. I have Puka Nacua, and he looked good, man. That touchdown he caught was a very nice touchdown. A jump ball, kept 2 feet in, great body control, great feet, great hands, just a great play. And Puka Nacua is the real deal. I expect him to be, a top 10, top 12 receiver the rest of the year. He's just at a great start and a great pace. Cup will be the 1A to his 1B. On the Philadelphia side of the ball, DeAndre Swift, he had a good volume game, lots of catches, decent amount of yards, just a good floor game for him. You'd like to see him get in the end zone. It just didn't happen this past week. But I expect DeAndre to have a big year, RB1 the rest of the year. He's the true RB1 in that offense where they have the best offensive line in the NFL. There's going to be weeks that he struggles because the defense is tough against the run, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith take advantage of that along with Dallas Goedert, just like he did this past week. But for the most part, DeAndre is going to get his opportunities. He's going to get some goal line carries. He'll most likely get, between 13 and 20 carries a week, which is beautiful, especially if he gets 4 to 5 targets in an efficient offense with a good offensive line. That's going to turn into good fantasy numbers every week. You're starting everybody on Philadelphia, and you mostly want AJ Brown or DeAndre Swift as the position players in that offense because they're the ones that are going to be utilized the most out of those guys. Similarly to Christian McCaffrey and I would say Christian McCaffrey only in that offense, but you would kind of compare Brandon Ayuk to AJ Brown a little bit as far as that's concerned. Moving on to the Bengals Cardinals, it was a bounce back week for Joe Burrow, something I expected. It was an easy matchup against the Cardinals. I think that the NFL and the critics the experts and the public, they overreact too much. And the Bengals have started off slow the last 3 years. So this isn't really anything new. It's way too early in the year to be counting them out. They can easily go on a 5 to 6 game winning streak. I know they have a tough schedule, but I think that they'll keep it going. Joe Burrow showed a little bit of mobility this past week, which is even more important than his throwing ability. Jamar Chase he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL, which is we all already knew. You're going to start Boyd as long as Higgins is out, but, he's just a floor guy. You're hoping for a touchdown, but I wouldn't expect a lot from him on a week-to-week basis. Mixon, he is what he is. I think he's the same every year. This year hasn't changed at all. I think that you're in store probably for a big game here sooner or later for him. But it's hard to predict, but you're not taking him out of your lineup. He's a 3-down horse dog in that offense, and he gets the goal line carries. So you just got to take it for what it is. They don't have the best offensive line in the NFL, so there's not a lot of big holes for Joe Mixon, but he does get the volume, and he is in a quote-unquote good offense typically. So I wouldn't worry about him too much. On the Cardinals side of the ball, we'll get into a waiver here. James Conner obviously is going to be out for a few weeks. So I'm not going to be able to pronounce this gentleman's name, but he is the picture of my thumbnail. And that is, I'm just going to say Amari Demercado. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a rental for him these coming weeks. So if you lost Achane, for probably a few weeks, then this is a guy that you're going to go after because he's your rental for that time being, right? And I would be going after him for sure. That offense has been proven to be viable. He should get a lot of volume. There's nobody else there, just like with James Conner. He wasn't really competing against anybody. I think overall this is bad for James Conner's holders for the obvious reason that he's hurt. But I think when he comes back, this kid looked pretty decent, and I think they might have a role for him going forward. So that'd be bad news for the pure volume for James Conner when he's back. I don't really know how serious his injury is yet. They haven't really announced how many games he's going to miss, but it is going to be multiple games. So I would go after this guy, especially if you lost Achane. But in any regard, I would go after him, as a good rental, somebody who's going to get volume, especially if you need running back help. If you don't need running back help, let him walk. I'm not going to be going after him in my Diamond League because I don't need him. I know somebody else will go after him. I think that Wilson, the wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. I don't want to say his first name because I don't know him too great. I know he's from Notre Dame, but I'm gonna find it here right now. Michael Wilson. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I got that right. I thought he was fool's gold. If you watched my show last Tuesday, I said that he was fool's gold. I was correct. If you stayed away from Michael Wilson, you did a good job. If you started him, I don't think you should be disappointed. I mean, he's not the number one receiver out there, and it's an Arizona Cardinals team I wouldn't want to be starting anybody. So if you're forced to start Michael Wilson, you probably were chasing the points and you thought you might have found something, but you didn't. He's only had more than 3 targets one time, and that was this past week, 2 weeks ago, when he had the 2 tutties and 76 yards. So he was fool's gold, and I think you should be sitting him on your bench right now. The only guy I would really be starting in that offense is Hollywood Brown at the receiver position ever. I wouldn't start anybody else. I barely would want to start Hollywood Brown. I'd be mad if I had to start him personally. And, if you're forced to, throw Zach Ertz out there, he's getting volume and targets, but I wouldn't want to start him either. I think you could find better options. And I know tight ends are tough to come by, but I think you could do better than Zach Ertz. I really only would start their running back, whoever's starting for them, whether it's James Conner or the kid who we're talking about now, Amari Deca Mercado. But if you're not starting one of them, I'm only starting Hollywood Brown in that offense. Moving on to the Jets-Broncos, they said they were going to unleash Breece Hall. They did. They unleashed him. This coming week, he's going against the Philadelphia Eagles, so I wouldn't expect the same kind of day that you had this past week. You were going against the number one worst running defense in the NFL, the number one worst defense in the NFL at the moment, regardless. So, Breece Hall, that was your best, probably going to be your best week of the year, and you'll probably come back down to reality this coming week against Philadelphia. But with that being said, he will get the volume. He is going to be their workhorse. They held by their word. He get 20 carries, and those guys are hard to come by in the NFL. So if you have Breece Hall, you're really excited for the rest of the year. There is some green in the schedule coming up, a lot of easy weeks coming up where I think Breece Hall is going to shine. He's going to end up turning out to be an RB1, I think, in fantasy. Not overall, but a top 12 running back. And this coming week, I would keep your expectations low because Philadelphia is the best. Them and San Francisco are the best defenses in the NFL against the run. But overall, you're going to get volume, and you're really excited what Breece Hall brings. He's the only guy I really want to start in that offense. You're not sitting Garrett Wilson, but you're not happy to start him either. At the end of the day, their offensive line sucks. Zach Wilson sucks. So you're just not really excited to start Garrett Wilson, and you're going to start him because you invested a lot of money in him, and he's the wide receiver 1 there, and he has a ton of talent. But you're not excited about it. It's simple and plain. On the Broncos side of the ball, the waiver wire kid from last week, I got to start getting better at all these guys' names, but I'll look at his name right now so I can say it right. Jaleel McLaughlin. He got 9 carries to P. Ryan's 6 carries. P. Ryan had a fumble loss. Jaleel was way more efficient. He caught 3 balls for a tutty as well. I think this kid is going to have a spot in the offense going forward. I think this kid reminds me of Darren Sproles. I think Sean Payton definitely thinks that because he had Darren Sproles once upon a time. He's going to be drawing up plays for this kid. Javonte Williams will be back, but Jaleel has solidified himself in this offense, and I think that he's a good flex option the rest of the year. I wouldn't take him out at this point. He's starting, and you hit on something here. As far as everybody else is concerned, Jared Jeudy, Sutton, you're not really excited to start any of these guys. This offense is not that great. You feel the same way about Jaleel and Javonte Williams when they come back, But overall, there's still a lot of talent on this team, and Sean Payton's still the head coach who, in theory, is a great offensive mind. So you still are hopeful, but this team seems like their players seem to always disappoint. Judy's in that camp this year. Sutton's starting to trend downwards right now. He's definitely trended downwards the last 2 weeks from a little bit of a hot start that he had. And I don't know, man. I wouldn't want any Broncos stock, but Jaleel McClellan is somebody to be somewhat excited about right now. Moving on to the Chiefs-Vikings, if you have Pacheco, you're starting him every week, and you have an RB1 possibly here with Pacheco. And that offense, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL with the best quarterback in the NFL, and they don't seem to have anybody that you can rely on besides Travis Kelce. So Pacheco is a guy that they're going to lean on, especially as it gets colder and we get into the colder months when teams really like to run the ball. The Chiefs are going to be this year. Their identity's changed. I think Mahomes is going to be a guy who's still as unstoppable as we've ever seen, but it's going to come in a different form than you've ever seen as well. I think you're going to see a lot more running and more play action where, they're finding guys on crossers and getting Travis Kelce out off the play action. But I think overall they want to run the ball with Pacheco and work off that and play really good defense. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I think that this is a team that you're going to see a different identity, but I'd be really excited to have Pacheco. And if Travis Kelce can stay healthy, which is a big if because he just seems to get nicked, he's going to get nicked up all year right now. He's the other guy in this offense. You don't really want to start anybody else. You want to keep an eye on Rajon Rice as he caught another touchdown this past week, and he's been essentially Pat Mahomes' number one red zone target outside of Travis Kelce. You're going to want to keep an eye on Rice and hope that he gets more snaps because he seems like he has the most potential in this wide receiver group out of everybody. But I don't know if you want to start him unless you have to. And I would really only want to be starting Pacheco and Travis Kelce in this offense. Moving on to the Vikings, we're gonna talk about another waiver a guy here in Osborne. Obviously, we have news about Justin Jefferson and the hammy. I don't think they're gonna rush him back. I think they're in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes at this point. Kirk Cousins is in a contract year. They'd love to just slide in Caleb Williams with Justin Jefferson in this offense. I think it's one of those kind of situations where I don't know Justin Jefferson's personality, but I think it's one of those situations that the GM could possibly sit him down and be like, listen, buddy, you're going to sit out a lot of weeks right now and just get fully healthy because between you and I, we want Caleb Williams to be your quarterback, and we think that we can possibly win some Super Bowls with you too. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings essentially tank it out the rest of the year. They're a bad ball club, as I predicted before the year started. I think the Bears are probably going to beat up on them a little bit this coming week. But I have no problem going after Osborne. I think that Kirk Cousins is still going to sling it. He has no ties or he doesn't give a shit about Caleb Williams, so he's going to be trying to sling it as much as he can. This is huge news for Jordan Addison holders. I think his stock I know his stock has gone way, way up now. Jordan Addison could be in the wide receiver one category from this week going forward the rest of the year. Not finishing as a wide receiver one, but from this week forward, he'd be essentially a wide receiver one. I'd be really optimistic about Jordan Addison. He's a guy that you're not taking out of your lineup now. And Osborne, you're hoping for volume from him. We know he's been in the league for a long time. We know who he is, but you want to start him now because he's going to get volume. He's going to get 7-8 targets plus a week, ideally, and 5, 6 catches. I'd say over 50 yards every game. Hopefully a tutty here mixed in here and there. So I would be going after Osborne with at least $20 in your league, especially if you need a receiver. If you need a receiver, you should be targeting Osborne hard because it's going to be hard to find guys like this who can, essentially be a start and forget kind of player for the time being, and especially if you need wide receiver help. I don't think they're going to rush Justin Jefferson back, guys. I think that he'll be back, around week 10, week 11. At best, most likely, I'd say right in that area is where you can predict, and that'd be big for Justin Jefferson holders to have him in the playoff push, the playoff run, in your league. But I don't know, man. I don't think they're going to rush him back in the situation they're at, especially if they lose to the Bears and go to 1-5, and then they lose another game and go to 1-6. Then they really aren't going to rush him back. It's one of those cases that if you're a Justin Jefferson holder, you need them to win some games here going forward so you can get him. They can have some kind of reason to try to make a run at the playoffs and get Justin Jefferson back in the lineup. In the running back situation, Madison is, he's played better. He's got a good matchup against the Bears this coming week, so you're going to start him. I think Hawkinson's stock is way up now with Justin Jefferson gone. I think Kirk Cousins will be looking to Hawkinson more, so that's good for Hawkinson holders. But overall, this isn't a good offensive line, I should say. And if you have Kirk Cousins, your stock went down for sure without Justin Jefferson. I think teams without Justin Jefferson on the field, they're going to really be able to lock this offense up, I believe. I believe that they're going to be able to stop this offense pretty easily. You're not really worried about the run too much, and now you don't have to worry about Justin Jefferson. I think you can do a lot of exotic looks at them now. You can disrespect them and send 6-7-man blitzes without worrying about Justin Jefferson beating you for a touchdown. Jordan Addison's going to have to take on that responsibility, but he's not Justin Jefferson, so it's going to be tough going for the Vikings going forward, in my opinion. Moving on to the Cowboys 49ers, Tony Pollard, don't worry about him. He's had a weird year and a weird 3 weeks where his team and defense has scored a couple touchdowns and they got some blowouts and he didn't get his opportunities and runs and carries and snaps because his team blowed teams out. And then vice versa against the 49ers, they just shut him down. They're the best run defense in the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's just a weird couple weeks for Tony. I think he's going to really turn up this coming week against LA. I think that the Cowboys, they know for them to be a good team and a good offense, they need to get Tony Pollard going again. And to be honest with you, he hasn't had a week this year where he needs to be getting 20 carries every game, except against a team like 49ers where it just wasn't possible. But I think against the Chargers, they know that, and they're going to really get him going. I'm starting CeeDee Lamb, but I'm not starting anybody else in that offense. And, CeeDee Lamb stock is a little down because Dak Prescott is just trash. And I've said that all along. I wouldn't want anybody in that offense not named Tony Pollard. And, Tony, you're even a little bit worried about just because this team doesn't seem like they're a team that can move the chains on third down. I would say that they need to be throwing a few more screens here and there to Tony Pollard. Get the ball in his hands in the flats a little bit more, I believe. So we'll see if they'll do that. On the 49ers side of the ball, we don't need to say anything, man. You're starting everybody over there. Last but not least, actually you could say least, a real snoozer Monday night game, Packers and Raiders. I'm not starting anybody on the Packers not named Aaron Jones. I've been saying that all along. Christian Watson caught a deep ball, but that was blown coverage. I don't really think that's going to work out for you that very often. They're going to try to throw deep balls to him. Jordan Love is going to try to throw deep ball to him quite a bit, but I don't predict them connecting. I just don't think Christian Watson is that talented of a player. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go win 50-50 balls for you. He's got a lot of speed, but he's raw still, super raw. I don't think he's the best route runner in the world. I think defenses are going to be able to stop him. I don't buy anything about him. Jordan Love is even worse. I saw from week 1 on a guy who was overrated and getting a little bit too much love in the public. I just didn't see a lot of talent from him. I saw a lot of bad decision making. I saw a guy who wasn't really reading the field well. Week 1 against the Bears, I'm not going to get into much detail because I've talked about this in the past, but there's just no pass rush from the Bears. So I knew once the Packers played teams that actually had somewhat of a pass rush that he would struggle tremendously, and that's exactly what you've seen from him. He's bad. Aaron Jones has to get healthy, but until he does, I wouldn't want to be starting anybody in this offense. If you're forced to start A.J. Dillon for volume with Aaron Jones out, I'm okay with it, I guess. But you're only okay with it against the Raiders. I mean, when he starts playing it, because the Raiders are bad as well. So if you're bad defensively, and we put up 13 points against them, that says a lot about the Packers, in my opinion. I think that you're just going to see an offense where you don't really want anybody in. I said that before the year. They were on my no draft list. Raiders on my no draft list as well. Jacoby Myers has been a huge bright spot of this offense, though. I will say that Jacoby Myers is a stud. He's getting a lot of volume. They've consolidated their targets down to just essentially Devontae Adams and Myers to go along with Josh Jacobs. They can't block for Josh Jacobs, but you're going to start him just strictly off volume. I'd compare him to James Conner right now from that perspective. A team that, I'd say obviously a better version of James because he does have Devontae Adams to take pressure off him a little bit in the box, but people aren't afraid of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's terrible. I said that before the year started. He was a worse version than Derek Carr, and that would be bad for their offense and bad for Devontae Adams. Devontae is going to have good games, but I just wouldn't want him. And I would have rather you spent that draft capital on somebody else in that similar area without me looking at who the potential players you could have got. And I mean, it's hard for me to say which guys at this moment, but you got to pay attention to my draft strategy before the year starts, because before the year starts, I could have steered you away from teams and players that, are not going to be successful week in and week out because they're just not in good offenses. The Raiders aren't going to be able to stay on the field. Same thing with as I said about the Packers, they're just not going to be able to convert on a lot of third downs. Low percentage conversion rate on third down equals bad fantasy football output long term in week to week on a week to week basis. You want teams and offenses that move the chains on third down, so it gives your guy an opportunity to get more targets and more carries, opposed to him just going to the bench and having the defense come out on the field. So tough going there for those guys. Final thoughts has another thing to say to me here. Should I got Hollywood or Palmer? I don't know what that means. But I would start Palmer over Hollywood for the same reason that I just went on a rant right now about the rant that I did, is that the LA Chargers, they're going to be able to move the ball on third down. They're going to move the chains. They're going to hit Keenan Allen. Eckler's coming back. The offense is going to be efficient in LA. That means Palmer's going to be on the field more. He's going to have more snaps. He's going to have more targets, which equals more catches. So there's no way I would take Palmer out of my lineup ever. I think Palmer's a must start. He's the wide receiver 2 in that offense. And unless Quentin Johnston starts to take over, which I think is a definite possibility, until that further notice, when that does happen, you're keeping Palmer in your lineup, and you're actually optimistic about throwing Quentin Johnston in your lineup as well. If you are a little bit desperate at receiver, I think Quentin Johnston's a great play. I think you can throw him out there after a bye week where they're going to, possibly have some game plan and some plays drawn up for him specifically. He's a hell of an athlete. I liked what I saw from him last week, even though there was nothing on the box score. They threw a jump ball to him that he jumped up and tried to make a catch, and he just looked different doing it. Like, there's guys that when you see them make a play on a ball, you're like, oh, he looks different than others. And I think Quentin Johnston's one of those kind of guys. I'd be happy to start him, Palmer, Keenan Allen, and Eckler, all 4 of those guys, probably for the fantasy football future. You might want to tread lightly on Quentin Johnston this coming week, but I think going forward, you're looking at those 4 guys who can all be good fantasy football options. I think that LA offense is probably the best offense, and one of the best offenses, I meant to say, sorry, in the NFL. I'm going to get into the waivers a little bit here. Just even though I've talked about most of them, I'm going to just do a little bit overview of it. We talked about Osborne. We talked about Amari Demercado. We talked about Jeff Wilson Jr. Logan Thomas is worth mentioning. If you need tight end help, I don't mind you throwing like $9 or $10 at Logan Thomas. He looked good this past week. He got a lot of targets. He's big. I don't mind you having him. Actually, I like him over Zach Ertz, so that gives you a little bit of comparison there. I think that Roshan Johnson is somebody that is probably already rostered in your league, but if he's not, you should be going after him very aggressively because you're looking at a high ankle sprain from Herbert and then a 4-week stretch here. A 4-week stretch here where Roshan could be a RB1, RB2 I think that you should definitely be going after him. And in that same breath, Deontay Foreman is a guy that you can throw a dart with this coming week. I think that he's probably just a 1 week rental essentially, but I wouldn't mind you throwing $10 to $15 for him if you really need running back help to at least get a running back that's viable against the Minnesota Vikings this coming week. I think Deontay Johnson could be the RB1 on that team and have an RB1 finish maybe for all of week 7 or week 6. But after this coming week, because I don't know if Johnson is going to be out of the concussion protocol, but once he is, he will be the RB1 until Herbert gets back, and I think he has a big opportunity to like maybe become a star in that offense, because that offense is good, and I think if he comes in and balls out, he could never give that job back to Herbert, and or it'll be a 50-50 when Herbert comes back. So that's where I'm at with that. I've talked about Josh Downs already today, but I'll reiterate again that if he's available in your league and you need receiver help, I think he's a good viable option with Gardner Minshew. Minshew likes to throw it to him, so I don't mind you going after him in deeper leagues if you need a receiver. I've talked about Rashee Rice, and so I'm not going to reiterate that, but I think that he has potential to be a good fantasy football option if given the opportunity. That'll do it though for waivers. NFL reactions. We don't have a ton of questions coming in, so I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll see y'all Thursday. I should have Easy back in, who went 3-0 with the picks. My pick expert, Vegas sharp shooting gambler who's gave out three winners last week. He'll be in Thursday to give some more winners out in the Thursday pick, which was a winner over. We took the over in that game, and it was an easy win with the Bears and Commanders. So let's see what he can do Thursday. And Thursday, I believe I will have my rival Highly, a.k.a. SCC, a.k.a. 2-3 GOAT, in the building. I believe he'll be here Thursday instead of Sunday, and we'll have a good conversation and talk about his team and the future of his team and our matchup specifically. So it'll be fun. Looking forward to Thursday. I'll holla at y'all boys. Peace.